When speaking and writing about our nation's brutal past and severe mistreatment of human beings, we often cannot begin to imagine the suffering endured by thousands of African Americans during the 1800s and early 1900s. In 1983, Alice Walker was the first African American to be awarded the Pulitzer Prize for a fiction novel. This remarkable novel was later adapted into a film and later into a musical. Alice Walker wrote The Color Purple in light of honoring her grandparents and parents who lived through this horrific time. She carefully crafted characters who resembled her characters and her ancestors. This way others can live through them in generations and generations to come. Walker focuses directly on the oppression of African American women through the eyes of her main character, Celie. In the beginning of the novel, Celie is introduced as a 14-year-old young girl who lives in rural Georgia. She lives with her parents, and every day she is chained by social and racial discrimination. She lives with her many siblings and her abusive stepfather. Every day she suffers from domestic violence from her stepfather. He rapes her and she becomes pregnant twice because of this. Her children are then taken from her and she is given to a man to be married to him who is actually twice her age. In this environment, Celie is treated as a possession rather than a wife, and in an attempt for survival, she writes to God and expresses her emotions and everything to him because no one else will understand her. A girl is nothing to herself, only to her husband can she become something. But I am not the mother of anybody's children, I said, I am something. This is a bedrock and an important quote from the novel because it shows the woman's ability to reinvent themselves and stand up and say that they're something and they're not anyone's possession, rather their own human, worth their own self. This novel is a literary classic because it teaches the reader the value of finding identity despite the brutalities of the past, and Celie's ability to reinvent herself despite all that she has suffered from. This book is identified as dangerous because of its sexual content and its intense description of domestic violence within the household of this time. For me personally, my eyes were opened to how women are like the bottom of the food chain in society, and how they are both abused by black and white men of the time, and how they have to live through domestic violence. It is a challenging read because not only because of its literary content, but also because of it opens your eyes to the raw truth and the harsh reality of our society of this time. And it shows how brutality travels within families and is just passed down from the male characters, from her husband to her husband's son, and how they interact with their wives. Within the novel, Celie shows her suffering through her psychological flashbacks of her childhood and how she was abused and raped as a child. She overcomes this by meeting women characters in the book, such as Shug Avery, who is also her husband's lover, but also teaches her how to stand up for herself and stand up against her husband through emotional support, and her social status is higher because she has more money because she is a singer, so she can relate to Celie and kind of contrast their characters and show her how to stand up in this situation. Another character in this book is Sophia. She is physically strong and physically capable of standing up to men. She actually punches the mayor's wife and ends up in prison because of this. Sophia and Shug Avery kind of balance themselves out with emotional strength and physical strength to show Celie how to stand up to her husband. So at the end of the novel, Celie learns how to stand up to her husband and actually moves to Memphis with Shug to start a new life. In this life, she sews pants for a living, and this shows empowerment in women because women of this time didn't wear pants, they wore dresses, so this shows her ability to reinvent herself and to take her talent into empowering women. In the end of the novel, Celie and her husband actually come and reunite, and this shows how the author's ability to show how even situations with brokenness and difficult past, characters can reunite and come together. The author also reveals Mr's name, her husband's name, as Albert, to show that they both have changed as humans and that they can come together and show mutual respect for each other and grow beyond their brokenness and their past. This novel is timeless today because there are still many people around the world struggling in broken situations and suffering that we may not know about, such as sex trafficking and just brokenness around the world that still makes it relatable to show how people can come together and rise up beyond their brokenness and beyond their hurt of the world today.